Okay, Programming 12, we're back and we're building our first 3D environment. It's a pretty boring environment, but hey, we did it. It's kind of an achievement unto itself that we could create this floor, if you will, this tiled floor. And again, we did it with the line function, just like back in Programming 11, right? When we made lines. Except now it's 3D, so it has, X, Y, and Z coordinates. And we just used a loop to, go through and tile out those lines. We're stretching them out pretty far, so we can expect these lines probably go behind our head and outside of our peripheral vision as well. That's good because we want to, when we look around, be able to see the floor in all directions. So I think that'll be good. We'll start by just getting the camera function sort of understood and understand what different parts work. And then we will talk about how to move the camera. I think that'll be a good start. I think that's the main thing to work on. Okay, so let's take a look at the camera reference page to start with. Here's the camera function, and you're gonna be like, what the haystack is this camera function? This is a madness. So let me show you. Here's an example of it in use. It's got a lot of parameters. Yes, it does. It's got many parameters. There's so many it's gone off this screen. There's 9 of them, and they're in groups of 3, and they have very specific meanings. Luckily, they're grouped together in groups of 3, so it won't be as hard to learn as it seems. But yeah, this camera will be basically how we control the position from which the scene is being rendered. And what that means is basically we can control the eyes of the scene. The scene is being drawn from the camera's perspective. And we can change that perspective to make it look like we're turning our head or we're walking in the scene and that kind of stuff. Any first-person shooter game is really just a camera that moves around. Yeah, that's the story. You might think, well, wait, what about when you go into third-person mode? Yeah, totally, we can do that too, and that'll be fun. We don't have models, unfortunately. The character models to render, but those are really just a camera that follows a model that's rendered in 3D. So yeah, either way, the camera is this exact thing in any game you've ever played that's 3D. So let's do it. We're gonna, I guess, actually first we should probably just kind of look at what all these things are. So here's the camera, and you'll notice it's grouped into sort of 3 groups: eye, X, Y, Z, center, X, Y, Z, and up, X, Y, Z. Don't actually love the names. The eye, X, Y, Z is fine, I guess. I prefer focus instead of center, and I prefer tilt instead of up. But it's okay. It doesn't really matter. So here's the story. Here's everything you need to know. So I have a handy dandy Lego Pokeball here to explain to you what these things mean. And the little, I don't know what that's supposed to be. Is that a button? It's a thing. This white circle there is meant to be like the direction that the eye is facing. So this is our camera, folks. This is our camera. Please bear with me. I'm trying my best here. Okay. So first of all, the eye variables, the X, Y, Z, that represents where the camera is in the scene. You can control its X position, its Y position, and its Z position. So X makes it kind of move side to side, Y moves it up and down, and Z kind of moves it along that direction. So we can kind of move our camera around by controlling these different variables. By the way, we'll have to declare these variables. They don't come built in or anything. That's something for us to do. The center variables, I prefer to call focus. And basically, it is, let me find I'm just looking at my kids' stuff here. Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. This is actually a bouncy rubber ball. I bet this thing will bounce real good. So center X, center Y, and center Z, or as I like to call it, focus, what it is the point in the 3D space towards which your camera will look. So if I declare this point over here, then my camera will look at it. And as I change it, the camera will always point towards that focus point, that center X, Y, Z. So if I move it up, it'll tilt the camera up and down. If I move it left and right, it'll go in that direction as well. So we got all sorts of things we can do to sort of point it. If you were thinking, hey, does that have anything to do with the head movement when you move your mouse in Minecraft or other 3D games? Yes. Basically, the center X, Y, Z is going to be controlled by the mouse, and it's your looking. Whereas the eye, X, Y, and Z is more about the position of the camera, which is your walking. They'll work together, actually, because when you turn your head and then you walk, usually you walk in the direction that you turn to with the mouse. So they'll be coordinated and connected, but it's fine. The last one, up, X, Y, Z. This one, we don't really need to do too much. I like to call it the tilt variables, tilt, X, Y, Z. And you could think of it as sort of a vector that comes straight out of the top of the camera. And as you tilt that vector, it will turn your camera around. Does that make any sense? You could also think of it as just a point. Here's a nickel. So that's like a point, and it's attached to your camera. And as you change where that is, it'll sort of change the tilt of your camera. So if you wanted to like do a barrel roll, like spin yourself around or something, that would be great. You could use those to sort of tilt yourself in different ways. So yeah, there you go. The tilt is pretty fantastic. So let's take this knowledge and try to do something with it. So I'm going to make in my control camera the camera function, but first I'm going to make some variables. So I'm going to make some float variables. I'm going to make the I X, I Y, and I Z. I'm going to call it focus X, focus Y, and focus Z. And then there's the tilt X, tilt Y, and tilt Z. Whew, so much. There's a lot. But that's okay. That's a good place to start. You'll notice that there are some default values that we're given. We can find out what the default values of the camera were. The Z value is quite the little equation for the default value, so I'm not going to worry about that all that much. We'll just adjust that. So inside of my setup, I'll just give it those values. So IX equaled width divided by 2, IY equaled height divided by 2, and I think for IZ, I'll just make it 0 for now, and we'll see how that goes. The focus, that's interesting. So where are we going to put the focus? So for now, I wonder what the default is. Yeah, basically the default is, same X and Y, but a different Z. So I think we'll do that. So I'm going to make the focus X basically equal to IX. I'll just put width divided by 2. That's fine. Focus Y equals height divided by 2. And then where should we put the Z? I'm actually kind of not sure. Let's just try something. Focus Z, we'll set it to be like 10. So that's 0, that's 10, so it's pointing, 10 out. But the X and Y are the same, so it should kind of keep it, in one direction. Okay, and then last but not least, let's do the tilt X. Oh, I see I had a problem with my tilt. What was the problem? Duplicate field. I already have a tilt? Huh. Well, let's just use there. Sorry, I guess I can't use tilt X for some reason. Let's do the up X. So up X, up Y, and up Z. Oh, that's why. Oh well. You can leave it if you want. I just realized I typed X twice. Okay, anyways. Video learning, so good. Okay, so up X, I think what we want to do is we want to be just going straight up. So I think I'm going to do 0 for X and Y. And it doesn't really matter, 1 would be fine for Z. So that should be going Actually, that'd be going down, wouldn't it? Let's go -1. That'll go straight up from our head. I think it would have been fine actually to do that as well, because these are lower, but oh well, we'll just try that. Okay, let's see. Do we see basically the same scene? That's what I'm hoping. Hope nothing's really changed. Oh, I guess of course we will. These variables aren't connected to the camera. So let's plug these variables into the camera now. So I'm gonna, we already have sort of the draw function with draw floor and control camera. We have the floor going, so now let's put those variables into the camera. We'll call the camera function ix, iy, iz, and then it was focus x, focus y, focus z, and then up x, up y, up z, or tilt if you stuck with it, unlike me. All right, let's see. Does it do a thing? Let's see. I'm hoping to see basically the exact same scene. Oops, I turned upside down. So now this is where I wonder, what did I do? And it's probably the camera. I think maybe the tilt, the up, I screwed up somehow. Let's just put it as 1. Let's see how that works. Wait for it. Hey, there it is. Okay, so I guess -1 actually flipped me around. You can do some, you can just experiment for a few minutes just to kind of get a feel for what these things do. I could, change this and see what happens. Will I be kind of facing into the ground now, or will I be facing away from the ground? I guess nothing apparently happened in this case. So you can experiment a bit with these values and see what you can do. But I think a fun thing to do would be to control those values with the keyboard. We put all this, key press stuff in here, key press, key release. So maybe we could control those for a minute and just kind of see if we can move around in our 3D environment. So I'd like to put that in now. I'll maybe control IX and IZ with the key presses. So W usually means going forward. So I can say if W key is being pressed, let's change IZ. Let's move the Z forward. So I can say IZ equals IZ plus 1. That might be reasonable. Now, our focus isn't going to change. Maybe I'll make it 10. Move it a little bit faster. Our focus point's not going to change. That's going to be a little bit weird, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm going to do the same thing for the S key, I guess. So I'll move backwards. So IZ -10. And then I will do the A and D key as the controlling the X, left and right. So basically the same thing, but I'll put in A key and D key, and so that'll control IX. And that if I press A, I guess I'm moving to the left, so it would reduce it. And then D key is IX, but is increasing it. All right, let's see what happens when I press A, S, A, D, W, or W, A, S, A, D, whatever. I don't know, the WADs. Oh, okay, so look at that. So I'm actually kind of moving backwards, but that's working okay. And then look at that, it's rotating. And you might be like, what the haystack? Why would it rotate? Okay, and that's a pretty straightforward answer. The reasons it's rotating is because our focus X, Y, and Z isn't changing. So we're moving the eye, but our point at which it's facing is fixed. So wherever we move it, it's going to be facing to that, right? So the camera's actually rotating. Wherever we go, it's going to turn to make sure it still faces that point. Tricky. So, oops, that's the bit of a problem. So that's okay, because, we can make the focus X and focus Y move with us. And just make sure it's always, sticking out a little bit. Eventually, that's going to be a bit complicated because we're going to have to figure out how the mouse is going to move focus X, Y, and Z. And so as we move our mouse around, it needs to change and has to be independent of the movement, but not entirely independent because we need to link it to the movement. So as you move, the point kind of moves with you. But we won't do that today. That's going to be for tomorrow's class. So, what a challenge! This is a toughie. So I, X, I, Y, I, Z, as we move around on the screen, we should probably move focus X, focus Y, and focus Z. And you know what? We could almost just do exactly the same thing. I'm just going to type this in, but I know it'll change later on. So I'll just make focus X, we'll just assign it the value of IX, and focus Y will equal IY, and focus Z will be whatever IZ is. And then I think I got my coordinates a little bit backwards, so maybe I'll put in minus 10 or plus 10. I'll put plus 10 for now, stay consistent. So basically, every time we control the camera, we can move, but then we'll kind of reset our point so that as we're moving around, instead of it like rotating, we're going to move the point along with it so that we don't rotate it. And then we can kind of preserve that later on. So let's see if we move. So yeah, it looks like it's working. I'm getting kind of the opposite direction when I'm pressing. So I'm pressing D and I go kind of the wrong way. I press S, I'm now going correctly, but I'm not too sure what's going on there. I'm going to switch this to minus 10. I'll probably get the opposite problem. Yeah, so now my A and D work correctly, but my S and W aren't quite right. So this is where we're sort of getting to like what I was talking about, where wow, we're really going to have trouble debugging what's going on. Like, are the keys wrong? Is there something wrong with my 3D environment? Are my numbers just jumbled up? So it will be helpful for us to print onto the screen, or I guess not onto the screen so much, but maybe into the console. What are our values? What's actually happening? I think that'll be really helpful. So I'm going to just print that out. I'm going to print line IX, IY, and IZ. And I'm going to put them down here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it very well, but you should do this and experiment with what's happening. So if I run this, we can see my X and Z coordinates. The first and the third one are really the ones I'm going to control. So if I press W, I should move forward. And let's see what the Z, that should be the Z coordinate. So let's see what happens to Z. So it looks like I am increasing the number. It looks like that's making me go backwards. And as I decrease, press S, I seem to decrease the number. It seems to make it go negative. All right, so that's great. Ultimately, I don't think it'll matter too much because we'll end up just, moving around. So I think that's pretty good. I'm going to close that for now. I think maybe just to try to be consistent, I might make this minus 10 and plus 10. So to move forward, I'll be minus 10. I don't think in the end it's going to matter very much because eventually I'll just kind of move in the direction that my mouse rotates to, but this will be reasonable. So let's just see, does that got it working now? Yeah, that's pretty good. So I can kind of move around and things seem to be working pretty well. So there you go. That's the control camera function, including little details about the print line. And I have no limitation. I can keep on going. I can walk right off my floor and go off into the void. No problem. There's no walls or collisions or anything like that. So that's us getting started. You can see the mouse doesn't make us look anywhere or do anything along those lines. So that's going to sort of be the next thing to think about. But that won't be today. That's going to be for tomorrow. So thanks for listening, everybody. I hope that made sense. And we'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye, Programming 12.